Welcome to Radio Nyra's Leaders and Legends podcast. This is Steve Rao for a live edition. We had exciting news, folks. I have in my hand the U.S. Constitution, and this is the first time in the history of our station on the Leaders and Legends podcast that we have a United States Congresswoman here, Deborah Ross, my good friend and mentor, Congresswoman Ross. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make your town hall yesterday. I got in 4 a.m. to RDU from Fort Lauderdale, but I got you all in myself for about 30 minutes. So thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Well, we're going to get right to the chase. First of all, for those of you listening, Deborah Ross was a 6-time legislator in the North Carolina General Assembly, took a little time off, and then came into the United States Congress, where she's serving on the 3rd term, doing some great stuff. We want to start off a little bit on this leader show to learn a little bit more about
Me and Ramayana.
bring you back.
Was a one good Lisbon Union Nyra and Nyra. Raja Tribal confirmed Bravo as Mandodri Dabe, but one is naturally born
In Connecticut, but we traveled around. My dad was in the Air Force during the Vietnam era. I was by him when he was in medical school in Philadelphia. His dad used to study in Atchison, Nebraska, because he was in the Air Force, and that's where I went to kindergarten. There was a lot of snow in Nebraska, and eventually he got a job as a doctor in Connecticut. So that's where I graduated from. Elementary school and high school. And it really formed who I am. I grew up in a small town, a lot like Garner, North Carolina. It was called Bloomfield, right outside of the big city, right outside of the capital, and a very diverse community, but also a small community. There was only one high school, one middle school, one junior high school. And so I really got to know the people in the town, and the sense of community was very strong.
That's really good. And your mother and father are still alive, and they must be so proud. Did you ever imagine growing up? You grew up in Rhode Island, right?
No, Connecticut.
Did you ever imagine you'd be a congressperson?
So this is a really interesting thing. When I was in Connecticut, we had a female congresswoman and a female governor, which was nobody else had that in the country at that time. And so it was kind of unusual. And I think when I saw that, I just assumed, of course, if you see it, you can be it, right? And my mother was very active in the League of Women Voters. She had me knocking on doors for the Scholarship Foundation. She was helping with voter registration drives. And so I just think I grew up with a culture that said, of course you could be a congresswoman or a governor or whatever you want to be.
Fantastic. That's great. Before we get into some specifics about Congress, we get about 25 minutes with you, which is a lot of time on a podcast. You've been an attorney, you've been a legislator. How did that prepare you to be a member of Congress?
Well, it always helps when you're a lawmaker if you are an attorney, because when you read something, you really understand its implications. So that helped me tremendously when I was a state legislator, and I was young. I was elected in my 30s. I was the youngest woman in the legislature when I was elected. Since then, younger women had been elected. But I understood what I was doing. And so older legislators would ask me what was going on. And it gave me agency and some power. Being a state legislator really helped me when I got elected to Congress, because I already knew what it was like to serve constituents. Was thrilled that I actually had more of a staff to do that. So I just think each of my experiences built on the other one.
So you get to Congress.
Yeah.
We see you on speaking and coming back. You're doing a great job, making all of us proud. But what's a typical day look like for you? When you get up there, when you come here to the district, you go back.
Yeah, I mean, so it really depends on whether we're in Washington or if we're in the district. So I'll give you an example. In Washington, my day usually starts by 7 o'clock in the morning. I like to prepare in the morning for my meetings. I look at what they're going to be, but I like to go over my speaking and things like that fairly early in the morning. But then frequently I have breakfasts that start as early as 7:30. And I will have committee meetings, constituents who come from North Carolina who I meet with, caucus meetings. Of course, we vote on the floor. And then in the evening, usually there are other meetings or receptions and sometimes dinner. So I could start interacting with people at 7:30 in the morning and not finish until 10 o'clock at night, go to bed, get up, do it all over again. And maybe it was a travel day. Here in the district, I get a little bit more sleep. But it could be a day like today where I leave my house at 9:15 in the morning and I have multiple meetings in my office. I go to an event. I've done 4 press interviews already today. And then this afternoon, I need to be back in Raleigh for a call and for a meeting with some people on the political side. And then tonight I have an event, and then I have another event after that, and I won't get home until 10 o'clock.
Oh my God, it's a long night.
Yeah. So that's really the way it is. And rarely on the weekend do I have a whole weekend without something going on.
You were in Morrisville last night, but what are some of the issues you spoke about at your town hall yesterday? What are some of the issues that you're hearing from people, to your constituents, and how does that tie in with some of the issues you're working on for us?
Well, the number one issue in America right now is curbing costs. And in Wake County, at the that list, he calculated costs. And there were questions about that. And we were also very fortunate because I talked about what we're doing at the federal level, and there's bipartisan legislation on housing at the federal level, which of course Donald Trump hasn't acted on yet because he's obsessed with taking away people's rights to vote. But we do have bipartisan legislation because people know how important housing is. But we had an advantage last night because we had the chair of the county commissioners who talked about what Wake County is doing. And then we had the mayor and the town manager for Morrisville to talk about what Morrisville was doing. So because that issue came up twice, it's the only issue that came up twice last night, we had a number of people who could talk about how we're cooperating at the federal, state, and local levels to try to affect crime. The other big issue that came up about costs was health care. So we had questions about Social Security, but also about Medicare. There was concern about Medicare Advantage, which of course is the more private way of doing it, and how much money has been taken out of the Medicare system because of Medicare Advantage. So those issues came up. And so that's not unusual. Those are really the 2 biggest cost issues people care about. But there were other questions. There were questions about the debt, which is, of course, increased because of H.R. 1, the big ugly law that gave tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires, but then at the same time cut health care and food assistance. There was a question about Donald Trump's fitness for office, with a petition and a very, very impassioned statement about that. And then there was a wonderful man in the audience who talked about seminars that he's doing on financial literacy, just as, PSA, public service announcement. So we had a wide variety of questions. It was very lively. We took audience questions until the very end. We took, I think, 3 questions that were pre-submitted, but they were ones that people cared about. And we got a lot of them pre-submitted, including about Davis Emory.
Oh, great. Yeah, you would ask about that a little bit. But shout out to Morrisville. I was honored to be a part of a delegation to All America Safe. And I served with Mayor TJ for 12 out of 14 years, so we're going to get bigger than them. But we're very proud of doing strong and excited.
Twice All-American City, and twice like the Hurricane, twice Stanley Cup.
We're proud of Morrisville. Always be a part of me. Let's talk a little bit about one question I want to ask you is about innovation. And I know that there's a lot going on with AI. You talk about data centers. How are we dealing with that in terms of where AI can make a difference, addressing job loss, data centers. What are some of those you're working with?
So I reported last night at the town hall, and I've also, there was an article in the Raleigh News and Observer about this. But just last week, we in the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, which is the Innovation Committee, we passed 10 bipartisan bills dealing with AI. Some of them were my bills. Some of them are now Congresswoman Foushie's bills. We have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans from North Carolina on that committee. They should passed in a bipartisan way. So it's everything from education, which didn't trace light up. I had a bill about reporting AI flaws, because if AI makes a mistake, he knows what could happen. And the Congresswoman Foushie was very interested in educational equity issues. So we might hold it they didn't have it, and please this bill and is just we. And we're holding 90 to see them on the House floor. We haven't got counted when it look for next week.
This is the one good man at well. No, and these are all sign of it as the consideration unto you. What that is
as the speaker puts it on. When we talked about the data centers, really the federal government doesn't do as much about citing them or about their energy. That's more of a state and local issue. But what the federal government can do is use federal lands, and in particular, military bases, which might be more secure for some of the data centers. There's some fear that data centers could be compromised. And then also, if it's federal land, there might be a way to co-locate energy sources so that the data centers would be part of the regular rate base and have people's electricity costs go up. What we did hear from the manager, the mayor, that Morrisville doesn't have any room for anything to step into. And we also heard to about how the state regulates certain things about how data centers operate. And we saw the legislature eliminate one of the tax breaks for data centers just this past. So all those things were put on the table. It was actually one of the questions, in addition to housing, that we spent a little bit more time on because there was such concern.
In your district, we're doing well on time. In your district, you've got the biotechnology, advanced manufacturing. What's exciting to you about like the business world? I mean, Chris Chung, we're going to be bringing him on the show, the economic development director.
I know Chris very well.
The Secretary Lilly. Why North Carolina? What are you excited about with our leader in Congress?
Well, I am so excited about how the business community, the community at large, and our educational institutions cooperate to bring good jobs to this area. And of course, the triangle is named for, Duke and Chapel Hill and NC State. But we also have NC Central University, we have our independent bridges, and then we have this incredible college system. And just John will tell you about this, but every time we try to attract somebody here, that business is introduced to our community college system. And I have seen that collaboration in so many amazing ways. A little bit before than a month ago, I was in Wendell at Siemens, which has just exploded. And Scott Rawls, the head of Wake Tech, was there and talking about how they're training people for the very specific jobs that they can get and about the apprenticeship programs that are available. But that's what makes North Carolina so attractive, because they've got the workforce, they've got the room to grow. It's a more equitable state than, say, California. And so we are attracting some of the best jobs in the entire country.
One thing that we hear about a lot, though, is, and you've been supportive of small businesses, is startups and entrepreneurs. That, we're getting these tax incentives, and sometimes they're not meeting their obligations, and then they provide incentives like my campuses. Are we working? Are there ideas you have about how we can support small businesses?
Absolutely. And my office supports small businesses all the time, helping with SBA loans, helping with tax issues. We also work very closely with the Secretary of State's which has a whole small business development program. helping small businesses grow. We do small business roundtables. And really, this economy hasn't been fair to small businesses because small businesses don't have the ability to buy health insurance in a pool when. So they're really suffering. Both that the Affordable Care Act tax credits have been eliminated. Most people in small businesses are using the healthcare marketplace. And so we are working to try to make it so those tax credits are restored. Tariffs are so hard on small businesses. We've had meetings with the restaurant industry. We've had meetings with small manufacturers. And just those tariffs are really hurting the construction industry. And man, I know we're going to get to immigration. Yes, I lifetime comment. You know, we have this attack on immigrants, including legal immigrants, has hurt small businesses tremendously. We've talked to businesses, the hospitality industry. We've talked to businesses in tech. The ability to attract and retain talent depends on a stable immigration system.
One follow-up before we get to immigration, I want to talk about and tell us a little bit about I was from Carno, who's a good friend of mine. He was in Silicon Valley. Yeah. He's mentioned that over $70 have learned about the AI company. So the things you've talked to the Congresswoman about how we could continue to support immigration.
Congresswoman Kana and I are very close. As a matter of fact, he invited me to Silicon Valley for spring to meet a number of people and they them that work on innovation issues together. And the most important thing to do is to reward innovation. I'm also on the intellectual property subcommittee of judiciary, and a lot of innovation gets a copyright or a trademark or a patent. And it's very hard for small innovators to protect what they've done. But Senator Tillis and I, in a very bipartisan way, got a new law passed that helps first-time patent applicants, reduces the fees, gives them assistance, and we're actually trying to get a patent office here in the tri.
Fantastic. And well, that's great. Let's talk about immigration, and then go talk about immigration in India, which you took last year. I think you won a couple of times in India, but a lot of people know as an Indian guy that a lot of tech seen as like immigration. You could spend a whole separate show on it, but talk a little bit about what you've been working on in immigration to address the concerns of H-1Bs, Dreamer status, and then birthright citizenship from the recent speaker, Jim
Yeah. Well, thank God the Supreme Court knows how to read the 14th Amendment and reaffirmed what's in our Constitution guaranteeing birthright citizenship. I have been working on paths to legal immigration. Most people are in favor of legal immigration, but the problem is that our system is broken, and it's been decades since we've reviewed our laws and taken care of the needs of our country. So I've done a lot of work to help the dreamers and the documented dreamers. And people didn't even know what documented dreamers were 10 years ago, but they're kids who age out of their parents' visas and then have to self-deport. And there's more than 250,000 of them. Many of them are in college when they're being told that they have to self-deport. So I have a bipartisan bill that's also bipartisan in the U.S. Senate. It's passed the House twice to allow the documented dreamers to stay in the country. What we need is a combination of enforcement of the borders for illegal immigration and expansion of legal immigration for people who are really contributing to our society and who are looking for opportunity. And I hear that from employers. I hear it from the Chamber of Commerce. I hear it from the healthcare industry. I hear it from the hospitality industry. I hear it from the agriculture industry. Everybody wants ways to hire people legally, and we have to get that worked out. We have to secure our borders. I've been to the border. I know that there are a number of ways that we can do that in a humane way. But if we don't open up pathways to legal immigration, it is going to hurt our economy and our community.
Well, that's the point. It's going to filter economic growth and things like that. So we should put it that. And if people have concern at the end of the show, we're having, I'm talking to your conventional out. Absolutely. But I mean, we'll bring you back and talk about that. Let's talk about, India, right? I mean, I love India for largest democracy in the world. This is an Indian American South Asian station. Talk a little bit about your trip to India, where you saw the opportunities for partnership to our study in India, what you learned, and how you build on this.
So I've been to India twice. Once was almost 20 years ago. I went with Kamala Harris. Isn't that exciting?
Wow.
And then I loved it. And then I went 3 summers ago with Rokana. We went to Mumbai, we went to Delhi, and we were at the Red Fort for Independence Day. But we also went to Hyderabad. And to me, Hyderabad was the most interesting and the most analogous to the Research Triangle area because it was young. There was so much innovation. We went to one of the biggest fabs in the entire world, which was extraordinary. We went to several of the universities and talked to the students. We talked to folks from FinTech in Mumbai. But everywhere that I went with Congressman Khanna, people knew about the Research Triangle. They either had family here, they had studied here, they had worked here. Yeah. I felt that connection, and I've heard from people since when I've come back. Now I am co-chair of the Congressional Study Group on India, and I will be going to India every year starting in February. It's every year, or be a bipartisan group that goes to India. This next time, we're going to be going to Delhi. Of course, we're going to go to Agra. I've already been to the Taj Mahal, but folks haven't, and they want to go. And then we're going to go to Panu.
Okay, great. And I mean, John Chambers, as we are from former CEO chairman of Cisco, who runs the Fartley Forum for India, U.S., has said that India has really risen from 9th, 5th, third largest, fastest growing economy. So that a lot we could learn from India in terms of AI, innovation, startups. They got the plan right.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of trade with India. And again, educational exchange. But most of our graduate students who are from a foreign country in North Carolina are from India.
Fantastic. And so you're going to be going back to India, so you'll learn the line and everywhere. If you have any ideas, please let us know. And, we're hoping your governor goes this year, Secretary of Revenue, which should be great. Real quickly, we're living in a very politically divisive time. So, but you seem to be, getting things done in Congress. So what do you think, what is your message to the younger, generation of how we can, I saw Bill Clinton's speech to Mount Rushmore talking about how, we need to focus more on what we can agree on. So any thoughts on that?
Look for opportunities. Look for opportunities. It's always possible to, have a fight with somebody. In Congress, I just avoid the people who I would have a fight with. If I have to, don't cross me. And you've seen me cross-examine people on Capitol Hill. If you come after me, believe me, I'm going to go after you. But I don't look for that fight. I look for ways to get things done and deliver for the people who I represent. Because the people that I represent want me to fight when there's somebody's taking their rights away, but they also want affordable housing, affordable energy costs, immigration changes, things like that. And if I spend all of my time fighting, then I can't spend any of my time delivering.
There you go. Well, this is great. We got 4 more minutes left, so this is going great. One of the shows like Mahomes on the field, just going to go taking it down every segment. But let's talk a little bit about we call this rapid fire. If you could spend an evening with any historical leader that come to mind, who would it be?
Oh, Abraham Lincoln, hands down.
Okay, great. Have you read any books recently or any books that...
Yes, and I'm going to my book club. I read a great book. It's called A Marriage at Sea, a true story of a couple that was at sea. Their boat was hit by a whale and they survived 4 months at sea together and then went on. They stayed together until they passed on.
Fantastic. What are a few of your favorite places in Australia?
Well, of course, Wake County, but I like the Outer Banks, and I also like the mountains.
That's great. We're going to make this a little easier for you. I think it's hard to describe North Carolina in one word, but if you had 3 or 4 words or one sentence, what would you make? And why do you love the state?
Opportunity, faith, and Southern hospitality.
Because I'm the father and from aspiring journalist who know, I want to ask you one lesson every young leader can learn from any advice you have to our young leaders listening to this show.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Oh, that's fantastic. What any final thoughts just in terms of this journey that you've been on? I want to thank you so much for your long-term friendship.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I would just say, life is long. And so we can't just look at things in isolated periods. We have to build on our knowledge, but we always have to be open to new ideas.
Well, I want to thank you all for listening to us. And if you have any questions, to email me, or you could contact Deborah Ross at her congressional office.
Ross.house.gov.
Yeah, just send her there, and we're going to probably bring her back in. And we want to thank Ravi Cherukuri and the team at Radio Nyra for this wonderful station. And, Hamilton had it right. Immigrants get the job done. And as a long-serving council member of Mooresville, the first Indian American, I felt that. But I think as Mooresville won the All-America City Award, my message to the delegation and to the National Civic League was E pluribus unum, from many we are one.
Correct.
And I think the Stereo Westville in our region represents that. And
plus you have a cricket pitch.
We didn't talk about cricket, but any federal... Congratulations, and congratulations to Federal Wonderful Carrie, and a bit back to the vote for Mooresville and the rest of the cities. But we know you got a long break. I want to thank you all for a wonderful show. We'll be back, and I want to thank Congresswoman Ross for taking time on your business to be with us in studio.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you.